All right. I'd like to call to order the Monday, January 9th, 2023 meeting of the Transportation Commission of the City of Meridian. I'll start with roll call. David Ballard. Here. Zachary Shoemaker. Here. Ryan Lancaster. Walter Steed. Tracy Hopkins. Stephen Lewis.
Here.
Jared Smith is here. Tom LeClaire.
Here.
Oyen Song.
Here.
John Wasson.
I'm here for John Wasson.
Lisa Itkonen. R.D. Huntley. Alyssa Taysom.
Here.
Justin Price.
Here.
All righty. Welcome, everyone. Happy New Year. Filling in for Walter, obviously. Hope you give me some grace as I kind of work through this. But our first item on the agenda is election of officers. The current officers are Mr. Steed as chair and myself as vice chair. So I believe, and Miranda, obviously, as always, feel free to butt in the eventuality that I skip something or get something wrong. But I believe that the first step is to open the floor for nominations for chair. So if anyone would like to nominate anyone.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lewis.
I would move that we renominate Mr. Steed for another year as chair.
Any other nominations? Seeing none, I'm going to close the floor to nominations. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Smith, or I will just say I did check with Chair Steed before the meeting. If he was nominated, he is supportive of continuing.
Thank you. Thank you. So I have a motion for Mr. Hopkins, I believe. Yeah.
Second.
Okay. A second for Mr. Lewis. I'm all in favor of electing Walter Steed to another term as chair. Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Seeing none. Congratulations, Mr. Steed. wherever he is.
Commissioner Smith, I'm sorry, who was the motion?
The motion was Mr. Was that Mr. Lewis? Okay.
And the second? I
That
had Mr.
was
Dick.
who?
Mr.
Sorry,
Lewis is the
it was
second.
Mr. Hopkins. Good there. Alrighty. Now on to vice chair. I'll open the floor for nominations. Yes, Mr. Hopkins.
Motion that we do for a second.
All right. Any other nominations? If anyone wants to take over? No. All right. Seeing none, I'll close the floor, and I am willing to continue my role. I appreciate that. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second? That's Mr. Lewis and Mr. Hopkins. All in favor of electing myself to a third term as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cool. Don't have to talk to my therapist about that. I'm just kidding. All right, adoption of the agenda. We are on to. Does anyone have any changes or alterations? Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Hopkins and Mr. Lewis, all in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now on to adoptions of the minutes from the previous meeting. Does anyone have any comments or any issues?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Hopkins?
There was a typo. I ran down the way in, add missing after the minutes subcommittee that Commissioner Smith reported that the subcommittee, they had a lot of discussion.
So Miranda, you noted that, you said, all right. Anything else? Also, the chair would entertain a motion to approve with that change. Mr. Ballard with the motion and Mr. Hopkins seconding. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Awesome. Now on to old business. I believe we have Ms. Carson with transportation projects update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are highlighted updates in your packet on the transportation projects update memo. I'll highlight a few of those now. The integrated 5-year work plan 24-28, we discussed that at the last meeting. I did want to let you know that did meet with the school district and parks on the community programs list that we're going to talk about today. And that is, I have another meeting with the school district on January 10th to continue coordinating our top 10 requests. And then we also have city council tomorrow night on January 10th. We'll be hearing from the West Side School District on enrollment. And part of that presentation will also be, I will be presenting on how we pick which projects go into the community programs and what kind of coordination happens behind that, including the work that you all do. So if anybody has any interest in attending or watching that on YouTube, there will be a presentation tomorrow night at the City Council workshop on the community programs. Also, Linda Road, Overland to Franklin, I wanted to update you on the design. We're still at the 30% design phase, but we're moving into the 75% design. We did have some discussions on the working team regarding the retaining wall and slope options at the descent of that bridge overpass. And so I wanted to let you all know that the south side of the bridge will be, I'm going to share my screen here real quick. And I apologize, I had it open, but I guess I closed it. Just pull back up real quick. Okay, the south side of the bridge overpass here will have slope infill on both sides. There may be some retaining wall in this section for access to the drainage basin by ACHD. That's their drainage basin, so they need to continue accessing that. On the north side, the descent for the bridge will have a full wall on both sides is the plan as of right now. That preserves the neighborhood trees, preserves some of the property, also preserves a pump station that's over here, won't need to be moved. And there's also city utilities underground that would need to be moved if the slope was put in. So the team determined that costs long-term shook out to be fairly even, and the wall would look better and preserve some of that neighborhood feel. So we'll be going forward with the wall on that design. We talked about Verbena a few meetings ago, just a reminder that that will connect through. That's continuing forward to the 75% design. And then the other big piece of moving into 75% design is looking specifically at the lane configuration at the intersections. That hasn't been determined yet. And then the lane configuration down to Barrett Drive, whether that will be left out, allowed at that intersection. On page 7 is the only other one I'm going to highlight. Locust Grove Road, Victory to Overland, and the roundabout at Victory. The construction has begun with some milling and is anticipated to be completed in the late fall. The other updates are bolded in your packet, and I'll stand for any questions on those or the ones I've already spoken on.
Any questions? All right, thank you. On to our integrated 5-year work plan project prioritization. All right, back to you,
Mr.
Ms.
Chair.
Carson.
It looks like I can only show her one screen at a time, so I'm going to ask for patience if I need to toggle. I can toggle back and forth between the map in your packet and the Excel as the commission desires. So I wanted to begin with the roads and intersections I had previously, I think, told a couple staff members that that had been voted on at the last meeting. And when I went back and looked at the minutes and at the recording, it had not been voted on. So I just wanted to make sure that we all, or that you all had finalized the roads and intersections. And then we will move into the community programs list to hammer out the prioritization there. So this is the list that was decided on at the last meeting. I'm going to try to show, it's a little bit difficult to show all of it there, but I'm going to show kind of the top 10 requests. The only change from the last meeting is this project was number 22 on the list, which would have put it in the request. There is a Linder corridor capacity study going on right now. And since we last met, I did get some capacity analysis from a consultant that said that the intersection there at Cherry and Linder is currently operating as acceptable through 2050. It looks like I have a typo there, I apologize, but it's through 2050. So I moved this one down, but I'm happy to move it back up if that's something the commission desires. Other than that, the list is exactly as the commission created it at the last meeting. So I just wanted to see if we could get that one finalized before we moved on to community programs.
One question for you, and forgive me if I missed this at the last meeting. Could you explain the color coding on the left side?
Yes, I apologize. The blue projects are the projects that I worked with West Ada, and they said those are projects that they have high priority on, or projects that they desire to be high on our their priority list, and preferably on our priority list somewhere. Yellow is the same for parks projects, and then the orange, or you might see some further down as well. Sorry, just scroll. The orange projects are projects that we won't be requesting of ACHD. It's projects that are either ITD projects or the city is already pursuing those through other means. So they'll be on your list for prioritization, but they don't need to be requested through ACHD's process.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or any discussion about the list as we ordered it last month, minus the change to Cherry Lane and Linder Road? Mr. Ballard.
Mr. Ballard, if I could you turn your mic on and lean into it so we get the motion on the record? Thank you.
Okay. Chairman, I'd move to approve the prioritization list of roads and intersections, which we discussed last month. Ms. Carson outlined a change, but I would move that we approve that list.
And are you moving to approve with that change?
Yes.
Ms. Carson? Okay. Do I have a second? Mr. Hopkins? Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? See none, all right. So we can move on to the community programs now.
All right, Mr. Chair, the community programs list. So when I met with the subcommittee to discuss roads and intersections, we briefly touched on the community programs list. Those are the projects that are numbered, or projects that the subcommittee discussed and began to rank. So I won't say that they moved forward with a full recommendation for that, but I did want to preserve somewhat their record on how they had shaken those out to be prioritized. The color coding is the same. Blue indicates West Ada School District support, yellow indicates park support, and orange indicates that it's a city or an ITD project. So it should still be on our list, but it's not one of our top 10 requests to ACHD. In the packet that I sent out, there were several comments. I do want to highlight that any of the projects that have an indicator in column M are from our neighborhood bike and pedestrian plans. The South Meridian plan and the North Meridian plan were done recently within the last 3 or 4 years. And so those projects are highlighted there. The map that I sent out probably looks a little bit different than the maps we've done in the past. I did try to highlight the bikeway projects. I felt that since we are adding bikeway projects to that map, rather than in the past, we've had projects that were about 1 mile block. And so it made sense to, I'm gonna share the map real quick while I talk about it, because that might make a little more sense. So in the past, we've had projects that were about 1 block mile. For example, this project number 9 sits between Meridian and Locust Grove on McMillan, indicating that the project is there or within that mile block. Because our bikeway projects extend past several miles, I did highlight those a little bit differently here. The colors don't mean anything as far as, other than to indicate that they're different projects. And I did try to highlight the number from the most recent prioritization. I worked with the school district and the parks to come up with this prioritization ranking. Haven't finalized it with the school district yet, but Parks has signed off, so to speak. They don't have any like motion. Their commission doesn't look at it, but Parks staff did sign off that they were comfortable with this list, and it does include a few bikeway projects in our top 10 requests. So I did just want to highlight that, since that's kind of new from what we've looked at in the past. And with that, I will open or let y'all open the conversation about how we rank these projects.
So one of the few things I do see that definitely will want to, should be probably top of discussion is current number, so I'm looking at 15 in the prioritization, looking at the second column, the Ustick Road and Venable Lane, with that being a request to be in the top 10, seeing as that's in 15. I think it's worth, obviously considering the other items that are above it, and if there's anything that is currently in the top 10 that is lower priority than that, to warrant moving it up.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hopkins.
I believe everything that's programmed, so it would really be number 5. Because
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong column. Sorry. Thank you.
I can provide a quick reminder on that. So we discussed, it might have been 3 months ago at this point, we discussed that ACHD has changed their process slightly. So, or not slightly, they have changed their process. So now they are asking us for our unprogrammed requests. So anything that's in green already has money tied to it. And anything that's gray is an unprogrammed request. And that's what column A indicates, that when we send our requests to ACHD, projects with a 1 through 10 in column A are projects that ACHD will scope and score for the larger integrated 5-year work plan. We do want to have a full priority list of projects, however, which is column B, in case there comes a point when we need to quickly weigh in on the city's desire for funding, shifting projects for funding. So that's why we have column B is our full priorities, and column A is our unprogrammed projects that with the ones numbered will be requested to ACHD.
Thanks for that reminder. Got mixed up on some columns there. Looking at that in light of that, and the comments around those orange, city investigating, would then, with what would be number 3 being a city issue, would that move everything up 1?
Yes, but I wanted to keep it true to what the subcommittee had done without making too many changes. I will note, I did go back. It's a unique year in that we didn't have the integrated 5-year work plan last year. So there were some that I removed because they were already in progress or nearing completion or already completed with construction. So there are some at the bottom of your list that will be removed. And that's just because they've already been completed or they're almost done being completed. So I'll highlight that as well. And then column C is just the request priority from the last time we did this 2 years ago as a reference.
So first blush then, what I would say, having been on the subcommittee, I don't see any problem with if the city is taking what would be number 3, bumping everything up 1. So that's the change I'd probably make unless anyone has any objections or issues with that. Beyond that, anyone else have any?
Mr. Chairman, was it the U-stick and Venable Lane that you mentioned earlier? Was that the one that you drew attention to?
Yeah, that was only because I was looking at the wrong column.
Okay.
Of it being out of the top 10.
So I think I brought this up during our subcommittee, but I would go the opposite direction of you. And I would move that down in the fact that there's already a crossing across, an enhanced crossing across Ustick Road at, what is it, 3rd West? That would put 2 within a half mile, which is pretty close. So I guess my question is if you keep this one at Venable, does the one at 3rd come out? Bottom line being, it's already served. That Settlers Park is already served across Ustick Road. So
My question in response to that would be, as more of a layman, to my mind, if there is enough traffic, I would assume there's probably some level of traffic that would warrant going beyond 1 every half mile for crosswalks in terms of kind of best practices or planning. So for me, it'd be more of a question of whether there is enough foot traffic or pedestrian traffic, maybe at peak hours, to warrant that. But that is more of a question and less of a statement or a position. But also, if you have a motion to move it one way or the other, that would also be germane.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lancaster.
and Miranda has it on the screen now. So, going from right of the screen to left. So there's Meridian and Ustick, and then Northwest 3rd Street and Ustick. So that's where there's an enhanced crossing now. And we're discussing to the left of the screen at Venable. So, that's a half mile distance there. I guess before I go too much further, Mr. Chairman, so I'm going to need another reminder here, and Mr. Chairman and Miranda. So I'm only counting 7 projects in the far left column on community program projects.
That's correct.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Or I'm sorry, yes, Commissioner Lancaster. The subcommittee did not get through the full top 10. And so I didn't want to, I wanted to be transparent that the subcommittee's ranking was the top 6 now top 7. And then the remainder of the rankings are rankings that I did as staff with coordination with West State and Parks.
Okay, so we didn't finish our work. Got it. Thanks for that reminder and knife twist. With that said, with the 7, gathering my thoughts here. So if number 7 on page 17 says number 20 in 2023 priority ranking, does that mean the rest of the list becomes 8, 9, and 10? as it's currently written?
Yeah, yes, so we did just move the numbers, so. Sorry. Show you this one. So these projects here would become 7, 8, 9, 10.
Except that the number 3 is going, wait a second, is that?
I
the-
did already do
away?
that.
Oh, sorry.
I try to move with you, but I'm not changing. I won't change column B until we're done, so we can make sure we keep the same numbers.
Mr. Lancaster, would it potentially, if you're trying to, and this is me, just
Yeah.
throwing out a possibility, if we'd like to lower this on the list, but if we'd still like to, honor the request from Parks to keep it in the top 10, would it be beneficial to return to this discussion after continuing ranking the others, or you're also free to make a motion now, but it's just a potential route we could go.
Mr. Chairman, I think what I heard you say, I'm repeating it so I can make sure I understand, is move the U-stick and Venable to what would be currently 10 on what we're proposing, right? So move it to what would be 10 and then continue the discussion. Is that right?
That is one option. It's up to you. I would, as just being cooperative with other departments and groups, try to honor that request, seeing as there was in the subcommittee, there was not enough that appeared urgent enough beyond number 7, now 6. I'd say it probably would still probably, based on their request, fit somewhere in the top 10. I'm not saying it has to be 10, but that's also your motion to make.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, let's go ahead. I would like to informally propose that we move it to number 10 for now. I don't put as much credence on bridges or as on parks prioritization since there's already a crossing there. So I think they're being a little bit greedy. And my neighbor is the parks director, so I feel like I can say that.
And then, yeah, if we want to just fill in those other numbers, might be helpful just for visibility's sake. Mr. Hopkins?
I'd be curious to get Sean's take.
Sure. I think from our standpoint, if there was another crossing, we would not remove the existing crossing. We would just have additional crossings. So we'd have crossing at Venable and then the crossing at 3rd Street as well. Given that the one on the west serves not only the park, but those, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's also a C-store, or at least there was a C-store there at one time. Is
Fast Eddie's, right?
that what it is?
Or it used to be Fast Eddie's. Is it still Fast Eddie's?
So if Meridian wished, I think from our standpoint, it would just be an additional crossing, not replacing the existing.
All right, so we now have kind of what looks like a rough top 10. Is there any other discussion around particularly what are currently numbers, I believe 7, 8, and 9 or 6 through 9 were mostly filled in by their previous rankings on the list. So I don't know if there's any other discussion around.
Mr. Chair, those were not by their previous rankings. Those were by staff rankings after coordination with West Data. And by staff, I mean myself. After coordination with West Data and Parks staff. And I'm happy to explain where I got how I determined those if the commission would like.
I mean, that could be informative. I don't know if there are any other concerns or any other wishes to raise anything up, but if there are, that would be helpful to kind of benchmark against.
Okay, so I will say that the two projects that are blue or the West Ada projects. They're new on our list. West Ada will have them on their list and kind of in an effort to be good partners, we typically try to get the West Ada priorities on our list where we can. So I did put those in the top 10. One is an enhanced crossing, and then the other is 20-mile-per-hour school zone signs. Then that left me with 2 openings for the top 10. So I went through and looked at the remainder of the projects in detail, down through the entire list, and looked at those on the project map that I included in the packet. Parks indicated that they would want to see bikeway projects that connected the most destinations. So I did try to look at the long stretch parkway project or bikeway projects. Also bikeway projects that didn't, there were some bikeway projects in the packet that you'll notice start and end in different locations with large gaps, and that's because several pieces are already complete. So I tried to look at ones that could connect the most destinations and kind of give us the most bang for our bucks point wise. The way ACHD programs those out with the bikeway projects is they go out and connect pathways that already exist or put in on-street bikeways to kind of make a long piece. So the 10-mile Linder bikeway and the McMillan Ustick were long stretches. One went north-south. That 10-mile Linder project is between 10-mile Linder from almost to Chinden down to Pine. And the other is east-west from Linder almost to the, or from Linder to the city limits between McMillan and Ustick. So I tried to find one north-south and one east-west long route that we could put in our top 10 to kind of advocate for some more bike connectivity in the Meridian area.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lewis?
I have a question on what's currently draft number 9, the North Naomi. Sorry, 9 in the column A,
Okay.
right there, the North Naomi Avenue, Ustick to Ponderosa. This is like a 500-foot long street that goes from Ustick southward and dead ends at the school. And I'm wondering why for such a short segment of road that they want 20 miles an hour and in the notes, possibly an enhanced crossing.
So I did say I met with the school district. We met and discussed the roadway projects that they had as their priorities. They had just begun looking at their community programs projects. So I haven't had a super in-depth meeting with them. That will happen tomorrow. So unfortunately, I can't give you a lot of information. We have already in the room. He might be able to help with that. But I think there's another person at West Ada that's handling this project. So unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for that. And I did just put it in the top 10 because it was a West Ada project.
Sorry, muted. Mr. Huntley, would you like to comment at all, or do you have anything?
I don't have anything at this point. Again, that will be discussion tomorrow. So get a little clear direction on that.
So thinking about kind of our process going forward, we don't have another meeting before we submit this to city council.
Correct. So projects 6 through 9. Projects 1 through 5 have already been decided by the subcommittee. Of course, you can change those. Projects 6 through 9 are the projects that we would want to look at the full list and see if any of those warrant being in the top 10 and moving 6 through 9 around as needed. Whether it's bumping any of my recommendations out, that's completely fine. I did my due diligence knowing that there's a good chance that you move all of those, and that's perfectly fine.
So my only point is regardless of what that conversation yields tomorrow. And that's something that could be submitted to city council, obviously, as they kind of move things around. I think we kind of should probably operate under the assumption that there's, with what we know now, it is, as far as I'm concerned, because if there's new conversation that's had that justifies it, is absolutely, it's actually more necessary than we understand. I'm sure that's something that city council could discuss and tweak accordingly. So that's probably my only piece of input on that, beyond any questions of if there are any lower ranked projects or requests that anyone sees a need to move up.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lewis?
I would like to move the one that I was talking about, the current draft number 9 out of the top 10. I don't see a need for it.
Is there something you'd like to replace it with, or is it just kind of?
No, just move everything else up.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leclerc? Yeah.
we had a lot of work early last year, I think March or April, on the Amity Eagle to hillside improvements. And seems like that would be a good response to the public interest in that. And it hits a lot of entities, the South Y, the Hillsdale School, and our park. Seems like that should be a top 10 one, even though it's.
Which number is this currently? Look at the 20, the column B maybe might be the. So that's, that looks like that's already programmed, so should be good to go.
Program.
Which
Yeah, so
project? I'm sorry.
I think Mr. Leclerc is talking about Amity Eagle to Hillsdale, which is number 5 on column B. It's already programmed.
Yes, that is program.
Yeah.
So we're leaving it as number 5 in our priorities. Construction is not programmed, but the design is programmed.
I think I'd seen a couple of other hands ready to go up, or would I hallucinate that? Mr. Lancaster?
Mr. Chairman, in light of no other takers, I'll concur with Commissioner Lewis. I was having the same thoughts about the what's number 22 in column B. I would replace it with yeah, just like that. Actually, Miranda did it.
And
So,
to be fair to the school district, Mr. Chair, that is also, it wasn't one that's currently on their list, but I could easily see them adding that one to their list by our meeting tomorrow. It provides sidewalks, speaking to the McDermott Road project, provides sidewalks for the new Oahe High School. So we're essentially swapping out one West Data project, one West Data supporting project for another.
And that would, speaking personally, that seems like that is, I would agree, that probably more necessary than the Naomi Avenue project. So I don't have any issues with that. Does anyone else? Seems like we have about 10 that kind of are where they are, and there might not be some fans of some of them, but doesn't seem like there's anything else that anyone wants to, is really concerned about pushing up. Is that?
Mr. Chairman, I think that the top 10 as we're showing are pretty good.
Ready? Does anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Lancaster?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve and recommend to the City Council the community programs project prioritization as currently constituted.
Second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. That was probably the fastest we've done that in our Januaries. So
I will say kudos to the subcommittee because they took that conversation from a couple hours here to a couple hours in a different room. So
Should get a
Appreciate the
raise.
work of the
Should get a raise, Mr.
subcommittee.
Chairman.
Exactly. We'll talk about raising our pay for sure. But beyond that, looks like on new business, our next item is Meridian Police Department update with
Miss-
Corporal. Oh,
Oh, sorry, just, I don't know if I need a motion, but just for business order, it would help. Need a motion to recommend that full list to city council.
okay. I'll entertain a motion to do so.
Unless both of those motions were for that, I'm not sure.
So moved.
Mr. Hopkins? A second,
Second,
Mr. Lewis, any discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Dotting our i's, crossing our t's. All right. Corporal Goodspeed, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Since the last meeting, I've only been in duty less than 2 weeks. I don't have really much to report on that front, but I have been approached by a number of citizens and officers with a request to revive something that you've already been presented as committee, and that's the reduction of speed limits in residential subdivisions to 20. So I said I would bring it up.
Thank you for doing so. I did take advantage. I do see Mr. Lancaster's here today, so I don't have the same luxury as last time. But I did mention that before as something that potentially would be worth investigating. And I don't want to abuse my temporary position as chair in doing so. So I'll maybe consult the group, whether anyone else feels like that might be something worth the ordinances subcommittee investigating and kind of looking into with a little bit more depth than what has typically been kind of someone coming forward with a complaint and a request and us kind of just hashing it out here.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Mr. Ballard.
I would be interested, and I want to say this objectively with in all respect, if there's something new that hasn't been considered. I mean, my recall is that was 2 rather vigorous meetings. That's the right adjective or adverb. But
Robust.
robust. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. My thesaurus is sitting next to me. I'm curious, and I'm not implying or putting anything, is if there was something new that was presented to the corporal that says, hey, maybe you didn't consider this, because I'm always looking at the unintended consequences, or did you consider this or that? So I would say yes. But if it's the same argument that they just need to go slower, I'm just kind of curious, what's up?
Corporal Goodspeeder, do you have any additional?
Other than what you brought up, Mr. Commissioner, I don't have any basis. I haven't been in this committee when those discussions have taken place. But as a personally and from my experience, and we all experience the same thing, it's not going to get any better in Meridian, right? The amount of traffic that flows through and true, just lowering the speed limit is not going to necessarily make giant changes, but people do, most people do, in my experience, tend to follow the speed limit. And I personally would see it's an advantage other than the cost to change it over. But I would be in support of it just for the fact of a safety issue. You know, how long it takes people to stop if they're paying attention and such. It does make a difference, even 5 miles an hour. But obviously, I was just the bearer of the message, so to speak. So I'll leave that to you, fine people, to make what decisions you choose to make.
Thank you, Corporal. Is anyone else, any feedback?
Chairman, comments not be interpreted as that I'm not in favor of safety. Out of caution, I crawl out of my subdivision. I've been wondering if I know how to press the throttle on my pickup when I leave the subdivision. I go, no. I see a need to go slow. So my comments are not about zipping through a subdivision, and I'm all for safety, and I understand that there may be young people and walkers. We have to look out.
Absolutely. So,
Mr. Chairman, so
Mr. Leclerc,
so is what currently our ordinance is minimum or the maximum, or let's see, the regular speed limit is 25 miles an hour in Meridian unless posted different. So would this amend that to allow certain neighborhoods the option of requesting a lower,
Miss,
so that is,
or is it just, are we lowering it citywide to 20 miles an hour?
Miranda can correct me, but I believe this is just a discussion about whether we should potentially have the subcommittee meet and potentially discuss that as an option, but more diving into the issue in a broader sense. Is that correct?
so there was robust discussion regarding whether certain neighborhoods could request a lower speed limit. And that was where the staff at ACHD, at the city, and I believe the Transportation Commission agreed, to my knowledge, that it's a hot mess, for better lack of a term, to have individual neighborhoods deciding their own speed limits. If we are going to have neighborhoods requesting a lower speed limit, we need to change the overall default city speed limit. That conversation has not been fully hashed. I know we've had that conversation briefly here and there with several different requests. I don't know that the subcommittee, I don't know that it's ever been a full agenda topic to just discuss the full city. What we did discuss was whether individual neighborhoods could request lower, and the consensus was that's not a great idea.
So seems like there is opportunity for discussion here, and even if this commission ends up doing nothing, we can have kind of an informed response to the increased requests that Corporal Goodspeed might be getting. And so I guess better to ask for forgiveness than permission. I'd say it's probably something that would be worth, Mr. Clare, I believe you're the chair of the ordinance subcommittee, of considering. And so I'll leave it at that. And maybe this is, something that is a longer term discussion about, the citywide speed limit. I do believe Meridian's the only one in Ada County that is at 25 instead of 20. I might be off.
I don't think that's right.
Is that not right? All right. I think Boise is 20, but that's for another. That's
Believe another, Boise is 20, I believe, and I believe another jurisdiction recently made the switch to 20 as well.
Mr. President, right now, the city of Boise, Garden City, and Star are all at 20. Meridian, Cuna, and Eagle are 25.
got it. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. But I do think that's something that is worth, investigating for the subcommittee. Anyone else have any questions for Corporal Goodspeed? I do have one question out of curiosity, and obviously with the weather, it's kind of a given. I'm curious to see how your department has fared with that. I remember Christmas Eve driving back home from my parents in Nampa. I don't think I got over 5 miles an hour. It was so slippery. So I'm curious if you've seen a major uptick or if people have handled that well.
Mr. Chairman, usually it's the first couple days after the first snow that become challenge. People quickly adjust their speed. So it hasn't been out of the ordinary of what we've experienced other than the first couple days.
Awesome.
Question for
Mr. Hopkins.
Commissioner Hopkins? Short answer, yes. Happens all the time. That's one of our major complaints after speed, things like that, is red lights. The challenge with enforcement of red lights, I used to ride a motor, and we could set up where it was advantageous and safe for us to monitor, especially like Eagle Fairview. This is a big one, such a large intersection. For me recently, if I don't observe the violation, obviously I can't do anything about it. And if to observe it, I have to be right up front. And that doesn't happen too often, but believe me, when I'm sitting up front and someone runs a red light and I take out after somebody, I get thumbs up from everybody around me. So I'm trying to do what I can. I know, we know it's a problem. We do our best to address it when we can, obviously. Unfortunately, people are going to be people. And I see it, and I'm sure you do too, more than I would in a personal vehicle, because people change their behavior when they see a marked unit. But I'm not using that as an excuse, but people's behavior does change when they see a police vehicle around them. So if that, sometimes that's all it takes. But that is a priority, just like the speed complaints. So
I just noticed it a lot here, people crowding intersections.
you're talking like the five-way intersection there. Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the corporal as well. So corporal, this is a question of curiosity more than anything, but we've seen some unusual crashes on the freeway lately, including in Meridian. And I'm curious if Meridian Police Department has a role in either enforcing or closing or investigating or anything like that, or if that's all handled by Idaho State Police. So I guess it's a jurisdictional question. I'm not asking for details of any, investigations or that sort of thing.
Of course, Mr. Commissioner. Since obviously the interstate runs through Meridian, we're often much closer than ISP is, especially on a busy morning or busy anytime. So we'll often respond to those initially to secure the scene, make sure it doesn't get any worse. And ISP more than likely will eventually get there. They would prefer that they investigate those crashes, but of course, these mornings like you described, Christmas Eve, where there's just not enough manpower, we'll do that ourselves. But normally ISP takes care of those crashes, and we'll just assist most of the time.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions? Thank you, Corporal. Beyond that, we have staff communications.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
person.
Staff communications is brief again this month. The Celebration Avenue, I wanted to provide you with a brief update. We do hope to have this back on the agenda in February for a larger discussion, but as of now, Ms. Murray did determine that there's no cross parking agreement between the Hideaway Bar and Grill and the Griddle. I also spoke to the owner of the Griddle that came here. I spoke to her on the phone last week, and she said that they have the property owner, because they're the business owner in a larger property development. The property owner would be the one that would lease property from the Hideaway Bar and Grill. There was a question from a commissioner as to whether they had reached out to try to lease parking at Hideaway Bar and Grill during the day in lieu of that cross parking agreement. And she indicated that the property owner has not specifically worked with him to try to lease property, but at a larger development meeting that had the property owner that owns the building that the Griddle is in, as well as the Hideaway Bar and Grill and a few other businesses. The Hideaway Bar and Grill owner indicated that he had no intention of sharing parking at that time. So they haven't pursued any leasing agreements. ACHD, Mr. Watson did let me know that he's continuing to work through the tasks that commission asked him to do regarding the no parking signs, and he's getting some lane width information and different data points that he needs to work through those tasks. So he didn't have an update other than to say he is working on it, and he hopes to be here February with some outcomes to that work. Black Cat Gondola, I wanted to let you know the progress on that crosswalk. It's been an item that's been requested for updates from both residents and city councilors several times in the last few months. So I wanted to make sure you all were up to date on it as well. The Keller Consulting, West Data's design consultant is Keller, and they, meaning Commissioner Lewis, let me know that they are planning to send their 100% plans to ACHD for approval today. And so hopefully we'll see something from West Data soon, once that design is finalized and approved, as to when we're going to have a construction date. And then finally, I have two more updates. The Planning and Zoning Commission is accepting applications for 2 open positions. This is kind of a new update for the Transportation Commission, but I wanted to let you all know, one, how much I value the time that you give to this commission, and also just how much I value you all as professionals and as colleagues. And I see this not necessarily as an opportunity to move up their commission the same as this one. They do have some deciding authority on certain projects. And so I just wanted to make sure that you were all aware, if it was something that you were interested in, that there are 2 openings on that commission. I believe that you can't serve on both, but I just wanted to let you know that they were there. And then lastly, it's not in the packet, but I want to let you know the end of year report to City Council is done by the chair, and that will be in March. So next month in February, I will have the end of year report for this group to vet before we send that to council for the agenda in March. And at this point, I can stand for any questions on staff communications.
I did have a question, and it is gone from my mind. So I'll probably just end up sending you an email at some point. But does anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns, commendations?
Mr. Chairman, I'll note that you've made it through the agenda by 4:30, so maybe I missed the election, but I should have nominated you as chair, apparently.
Outstanding, Mr. Chairman.
Nobody tell Walter. Thank you, appreciate that. But that's also a testament, like Miranda said, to the subcommittee doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the 5-year work plan prioritization. I feel like in years past, we've had a lot to pull apart, and even the new formulation, kind of taking the time to sit together and figure that out was a hurdle. So that's also a big part of it. But yeah, beyond that, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I was just going to say the future meeting topics.
A future meeting
If
time.
anybody has any questions on those or any desire to add anything, just let me know. Thank you.
Awesome. All righty. So there is a
Second.
motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Awesome. Thank you, guys.